Beam me up, Mr. Spark.
Screaming, but Dad, I love him!
Who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in it?
Saw in my mind fairy lights through the mist to the house. We still wait up in that porch like gleams.
The Tortured Poets Department reeks of the tortured artist phenomenon. In fact, the very first lyric of the album, I was a functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed my new aesthetic, is a literary reference to infamous poets like Hemingway, Dylan Thomas, Edgar Allan Poe, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and so many others who followed the notorious writer's tradition of suffering and resultantly drinking and writing poetry. For a writer, this activity of drinking and booze and champagne is seen as an esoteric idiosyncrasy and ascetic rather than as a self-destructive behavior that it actually is. But more importantly, the artist who arguably stands out the most in the entire album is Sylvia Plath, especially in the music video, which seems to be a subtle, eerie documentation of her poetically tragic life. Plath had undergone multiple electric shock treatments in the hopes of curing her depression. She recounts this bone-chilling experience that wrung her hollow and lifeless in her autobiographical book, The Bell Jar, writing, "Then something bent down and took hold of me and shook me like the end of the world. It shrilled through an air crackling with blue light, and with each flash a great jolt drubbed me till I thought my bones would break and the sap fly out of me like a split plant. I wondered what terrible thing it was I had done." The music video gives us a glimpse into this appalling experience. Plath also married an infamous poet, Ted Hugh. Both fell in love in rhyme and meter, syntax and verse. They were counterparts to their creative endeavors. A sentiment Taylor resounds in another reference to Patti Smith, singing, "You're not Dylan Thomas, I'm not Patti Smith, we're modern idiots. And we wondered of the time I was away stitching, we were just kids, babe." The mention of just kids is not accidental and frivolous. The memoir recounts the lives of two artists, Patti and Robert Mapplethorpe, living off of paintbrushes and ink pens in New York and the Chelsea Hotel. Both these relationships fall parallel to her relationship with Joe Alwyn, with whom she released two albums, Folklore and Evermore. But the haunting chorus begins when Taylor sings about the miracle move-on drug and takes pills to forget him in the music video, under the persistent background humming, "I love you, it's ruining my life." It all crescendos into the core meaning of the album and what Sylvia Plath went through, the enchanting anguish of memory. This is reminiscent of the movie The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where an impulsive woman, Clementine, decides to undergo the miraculous procedure of having her memory erased after a fight with her boyfriend. But why would you want to remove a beloved's memory tattooed into the very fissures of your mind? Because in certain cases, a human memory is a knife spiked into flesh, so corrosive it infiltrates your sense of singularity, debilitating sanity and selfhood until you walk rooms that have no dimensions. The chairs are upside down, reason is off kilter, logic is jagged. You're floating in the nonsensical room of memory that no Newtonian law can intervene. There is only the mind rendered so berserk over the mere existence of a human that there are a menace to society and have to be chained until finally you take the miracle move-on drug to be in the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Ted Hugh later cheated on Sylvia Plath, leading to her eventual spiral into madness and death. The music video might be alluding to a phone call from Ted's mistress to Plath, which nailed a lasting blow to the coffin of her marriage with Hugh. After Sylvia's death, he burned her diary and writings to remove any evidence of his guilt and crime. And yet still, 2 months before her death, Plath locked herself in a room and wrote her magnum opus. This is reminiscent of Taylor Swift. She wrote 32 songs, not for the whole world, but for herself. You are the knife I turn inside myself. That is love. There's nothing haunts a Taylor Swift song more than a memory, especially the memory of a person, which becomes a metaphysical entity embodying a certain hue, a scarf, or a place like London or Florida or Centennial Park. And all too well, A scarf becomes a motif which encapsulates regret over lost love. In the tortured poet's department, she says, "You left your typewriter at my apartment." And in the poetic logic of the song, that could only mean she's meant to decode them, know them, hold them, troll them. Invisible String gives insight into this neurotic, obsessive tendency to imbue physical objects with an impalpable quality. Like a compulsive neurotic in the burning building of all that she doesn't want to forget, she frantically takes hold of everything she wants to remember as keepsakes in her lyrics. She ties what she feels to what she sees, singing, "Gold was the color of the leaves when I showed you around Centennial Park. From green was the color of the grass where I used to read at Centennial Park." There are three significant colors in the Taylor Swift multiverse: gold, blue, and gray. From Cascade Ocean Wave blues to catastrophic blues, blue signifies depression, but it doesn't necessarily have a negative connotation in a Taylor Swift song, as she sings in hopes, "Don't want no other shade of blue but you. No other sadness in the world would do. And I'm with you even if it makes me blue." On the other end of the spectrum, in the lyrics, "I once believed love would be black and white, but it's golden." We see that gold signifies the gold rush of falling in love, such as "This is the golden age of something good and right and real," or "Deep blue, but you painted me golden, made your mark on me, a golden tattoo. One single thread of gold tied me to you." A personal favorite of mine is the allusion to gold in her song Champagne Problems, where she sings, "Your Midas touch on the Chevy door," referring to the mythological figure of Midas who turned things gold at the touch of his hands. However, the use of colors and places also serve to mark the progression of change, as later on, blue, which was once desirable, becomes distasteful when she sings, "You sacrificed us to the gods of your bluest days." And through lyrics such as "A con man sells a fool a get-love quick scheme," and "Your impressionist paintings of heaven turned out to be fake," a relationship turns out to be fake gold that rusts to the color of maroon. In this song, Taylor herself sings, "And I lost you, the one I was dancing with in New York. No shoes, looked up at the sky and it was maroon." The color black and white also marks this progression when she goes from "I once believed love would be black and white, but it's golden" in Lover to "You cinephile" in Black and White, "You low-down boy, you stand-up guy." In her later album, gold is mentioned with desire and envy rather than as something she has. "I look in people's windows, transfixed by rose golden glows." In the particular song Alchemy, which is a transmutation of base metal into gold after referring to her last relationship as a hospital track, Taylor sings, "Honestly, who are we to fight the alchemy?" She ends the song with, "This happens every few lifetimes. These chemicals hit me like white wine." Can you guess what the color of white wine is? Gold. However, the subtle nuance of the word alchemy rather than chemistry is interesting and clever. Chemistry is a realistic science based on logical fact and reason, whereas alchemy is a refuted medieval science on the quest for a universal elixir that doesn't exist. Conclusively, Taylor Swift seems to know that she will never find the one, and that she's chasing an ephemeral feeling that will never last. This sentiment has never been more prominent than in her song Prophecy, where the narrator sings, "Slow is the quicksand poison blood from the wound of the pricked hand. Still I dream of him." Alluding to the prophecy in Sleeping Beauty, a woman pricks her hand on the spindle of a spinning wheel and goes to sleep forever until she is kissed by a true lover. Similarly, the narrator dreams of the true lover, and in the desperate pursuit of finding the one, she is left bereft and reeling, with a split spine, with wounds so gorged their inkwells for poems that propel her to a stardom so big that it corrodes her entire life, including her love life. The song begins with, "Hand on the throttle, thought I caught lightning in a bottle, but it's gone again. The word throttle, which is described by the Urban Dictionary as a device controlling the flow of fuel or power to an engine, a word that was also used in the lyrics of So High School, Brand New Full Throttle, to describe the honeymoon stages of a relationship, hints to a sense of deliberate control and power. The narrator is driving the engine. However, that is contrasted with the imagery of lightning in a bottle. Typically speaking, the phrase lightning in a bottle is used when someone achieves an extraordinary feat. However, in the context of the poem, lightning evokes a sense of danger or an out-of-control situation. Lightning in a bottle, though an extraordinary feat, is not feasible, and eventually lightning, which cannot be tamed, spreads. Basically, the narrator believed they were in control when they were not. In the context of Taylor Swift's life, her fame, which was once manageable, has become an uncontrollable force driving her life.
I struggle a lot with the idea that, my life has become unmanageably sized, and that I, not to sound too dark, but I just struggle with the idea of not feeling like a person.
Further onward, she writes, "Pat around when I get home. A lesser woman would have lost hope. A greater woman wouldn't beg. But I looked to the sky and said, please." This is reminiscent of Dear Reader, where she writes, "If you knew where I was going, to a house not a home, all alone 'cause nobody's there, where I pace in my pen, and my friends found friends who care. No one sees you lose when you're playing solitaire." Eventually, the very act of writing, the talent that launched her to a stardom, is imbued with a sense of stricken melancholy, because she can write anguished songs that echo on the lips of every girl in the world about true love, songs about lovers that scares away lovers. In The Lucky Ones, she writes, "Now it's big black cars and Riviera views, and your lover in the foyer doesn't even know you, and your secrets end up splashed on the news front page." The fame is so colossal that it ends the relationship that everybody wants to hear about. And how did it end? She explores the public obsession with her life, writing about her breakup, "Say it once again with feeling, how the death rattle breathing, silenced as the soul was leaving, the deflation of our grieving, leaving me bereft and reeling, my beloved ghost and me, sitting in a tree, dying." This song reminds me of a poem in The Colossus by Sylvia Plath about a crowd around a burning building. Compelled by calamity's magnet, they loiter and stare as if the house burnt out were theirs, or as if they thought some scandal might any minute ooze from a smoke-choked closet into light. The poem ends with a heartbreaking sentence that poignantly describes Taylor Swift's life. The crowd sucks her last tear and turns away. It is no wonder that so many of Taylor Swift's songs have a vitriolic derision towards society, from describing people as these cynical clones to hunters with cell phones to name-dropping sleaze. In But Daddy, I Love Him, she writes, "I don't cater to all these vipers dressed in empath's clothing. God save the most judgmental creeps who say they want what's best for me, sanctimoniously performing soliloquies I'll never see, thinking it can change the beat of my heart when he touches me and counteract the chemistry and undo the destiny. And I just learned these people raise you just to cage you." And yet again, no wonder so many of her poems are marked by a desire to get away from these people in the first place.
I went to William Wordsworth's grave and just sat there and I was like, wow, you went and did it.
Yeah.
You just did it. You just went away and you kept writing, but you didn't subscribe to the things that were killing you.
Taylor Swift explicates this idea further in her song The Lakes from Folklore, giving a subtle ode to the lake poets, which included William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Robert Southey, and sometimes Wordsworth's sister Dorothy, who lived together in the Lake District in England. Taylor Swift has this artistic yearning for seclusion.
Man, I could see this. You know, you live in a cottage and you've got wisteria growing up the outside of it, and why, of course they escaped like that. Of course they would do that. And they
Describing this feeling in the lyrics, quick, tell me something awful, like you are a poet trapped inside the body of a finance guy. The infamous Japanese classic No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai describes and delves into this feeling perfectly. People talk of social outcasts. The words apparently denote the miserable losers of the world, the vicious ones. But I feel as though I have been a social outcast from the moment I was born. If ever I meet someone society has designated as an outcast, I invariably feel affection for him, an emotion which carries me away in melting tenderness. Another book that delves into the social outcast is a childhood classic story of a disagreeable 10-year-old girl who's sent to live with her neglectful uncle in a huge manner when her parents die of a cholera epidemic. Thereafter, she finds the key to a secret garden, and intending to its wild roots, its forsaken flowers, its abandoned ivy with her friend Dickon, she tends to her own heart and blooms. Taylor read this as a child and teenager dealing with bullying, as she alludes to in the song I Hate It Here, singing, I hate it here, so I will go to secret gardens in my mind. People need a key to get to. The only one is mine. I read about it in a book when I was just a precocious child and felt seen, because a secret garden is a healing resort for forsaken children. It is there that they can be who they are, as Taylor sings in the song 7 in Folklore, which may also be a hint towards this book. Please picture me in the weeds. Before I learned civility, I used to scream ferociously anytime I wanted. Eventually, Taylor concludes in the prophecy, please, I have been on my knees. Change the prophecy. Don't want money, just someone who wants my company. Let it once be me. Who do I have to speak to about if they can redo the prophecy? Also, Taylor Swift never knew that her life would pan out this way. She says in the exact song, it was written, I got cursed like Eve got bitten. Oh, was it punishment? In Christian mythology, Eve bit the apple and cursed all of mankind. However, Taylor subtly shifts the blame from Eve by proclaiming that it was Eve herself who got cursed, because her fate had already been sealed by God when he wrote it. In the same way that she had decided to pursue her passion for singing, not knowing she would get lost in a slow quicksand. The prophecy is if she finds true love, this quicksand will stop and she will be golden.